replacing the battery on the SY77, and this assumes that you've watched the video about how to get into the SY77 first. Now, I did consider, or I have considered, actually just trying to flip the board up out of the synth to do this battery replacement, but I think that would probably be more trouble than it was worth. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to take the board out of the synth, which is what I intended to do when I started, to get to the battery. And that of course means that I've got to take all these connectors off this board and mark which connector goes where. Suppose I better get on with it. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. So, connectors. Trusty phone. That's all the connectors out. As you probably saw on the overhead, I took a photograph. Now somebody's already been in here before me and they have marked the connectors in specific ways. The only thing I've done is in certain instances I've just augmented that marking because the marking was too similar to another connector, if that made any sense. So when I put these back, I will just refer to my pictures about which connector goes into which slot. In most instances it should be fairly obvious because the connectors won't fit into other slots. But there's a couple like these ones here that are very similar in size to these ones here. So obviously I want to make sure I get the right wires in the right places. Next job, get the screws out and hopefully the board should just lift up. I make that 6 screws. Okay, there is the battery board out, and the battery is those terminals there by the looks of it, which I need to get out. So I'm going to get the synth off the bench for a couple of minutes. So I can put this in a holder, and then I can get these battery lugs out and put a battery holder in their place. I am about to do something that I would never recommend. And the reason why I'm going to have to do this is because standard battery holders for CR2032 batteries, which is what that is, are about between 19.5 and 20 millimeters between those two contact points, which I'm hoping you can see on camera. The problem is that on the circuit board, the distance between this point and this point is only 16 millimeters, which means that the battery holder will not go into that slot. In fact, actually most normal Yamaha tag batteries won't fit that slot either, because they're all set on a 20 mil or so separation. Now, I did try to buy some smaller gap battery holders, and I did find some that were 16 mil. The problem with those is, despite being told on the spec sheet that they would fit the CR2032 battery, you guessed right, they don't. So they've arrived and they don't fit. They fit the distance okay, but they don't fit the battery that needs to go in here, which is the CR2032. So based on that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to desolder the battery out of here, and then I'm going to drill a hole. And that's why I say I don't recommend doing this at all. Now, the reason why I can drill a hole is because this whole area here is where the battery is. So I can actually drill a hole roughly 4 millimeters further along, and I should still be able to put the battery holder in. And then what I will do is I will just take a very small piece of wire and I will just bridge the gap so that the wire is soldered into this point here, and obviously into the contact. And that should do the trick, he says. First thing to do is desolder the old battery. There you go, one old battery removed. So with the battery out, we now need to mark 20 millimeters. I was hoping to use that, but that ain't going to work. So this particular part of the exercise is not for the faint-hearted, because I'm going to now put a hole in the circuit board for a synthesizer, which is something I would never recommend unless you really have to do something like this. Just like that. And the positive is the top of the battery. Well, it fits. Aha, that's what I'm looking for. Now, a lot of people use hot glue for doing this sort of stuff, and it's kind of 50-50 whether you use hot glue for putting the battery holder in or not. I tend not to. I tend to just solder it into place, and I tend to use a bit of blue tack just to hold it in place while I'm heating the solder up. So, soldering iron should be nice and hot. Some flux on the joint. Connection number 1. So what I've done is effectively got a piece of braid, and I've just soldered the piece of braid between the old connection and the new connection just to make sure that there is continuity. So now, having a quick look at this, if I were to get my continuity meter, which is here, and set it to continuity mode, so whether that will come up on camera on the above shot, I'm not sure, but let's have a quick shifty and make sure that that battery holder is in place. So if we put a on there, definitely continuity there. I'll look for something on this. Yep. Because the question is, where do these things jump to? The battery holder is now in place, and I can put in a new CR2032 battery, which I have here. If we just turn that over again, of volts. And I'm getting 3 volts across the battery terminals. I think that's good. Battery good to go. Next. So now the battery's been changed, it's time to put this back in here. And it goes back in the same way it came out, which is like that. And then we just slide it back onto here. Making sure that all the cables are not snagged, like so. Cables over here. Now what there is there's 2 locator lugs by these 2 screws, and they just need to locate like that. And that circuit board is exactly where it needs to be. So now we can put the screws back in. Remembering that this one here was a cable tie. Just like that. And lastly, this one here was also a cable tidy. So that's the bigger one. Just like that. Now we can start reconnecting the cables. So that's the disk drive. It goes in over here. That's from the card readers. Here. That one comes from somewhere underneath. Don't know what it is, but that goes in there. Right. So on this side, that one's obvious, as is this one. And this is where I have to refer to my notes. What I'm trying to ensure is that this is obviously an anchor point for a screw, and I don't want any of the cables to get caught by the screw. So I'm just making sure they all route properly. Now, the thing is, most of the connectors will only go in one way because they've got slight beveled edge. So you can't get the connectors the wrong way around, but you can potentially get the wires or the connectors in the wrong places, because a number of these connectors are the same length. Some of them are obvious, you know, they can't be anything other than what they are, but some of them are not. Hence the reason why when I was taking it to pieces and taking all these out, I took lots of photographs, and I used those photographs to put all these back in. So with a little bit of luck, that is all done. And that is the battery change. You can see now it's got a lovely shiny new CR2032 battery in there, in a battery holder, that I can now next time round easily change. So that's the battery change sequence done, and we now move on to changing the disk drive. And on that note, live long and prosper on this one. See you next time. Bye bye.